Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, those who are here live, the gentlemen who are here learning Torah with us tonight live, this afternoon, and also those who are watching, streaming live on the internet now. Appreciate your being here. Hopefully have some words of inspiration and religious self-improvement. We want to thank very much also, once again, as we did for the first year, very much the Chazak organization in Queens for welcoming us and organizing the shir today and making it happen and bringing out a beautiful group of young professional men. Also want to thank Torah Anytime as well for always filming my shiurim and dutifully putting them up there and sharing them with the world, and also for streaming this class live. The Chazak and Torah Anytime are two of the Jewish organizations in the world that I most admire. And Kanai Nahara, we have a lot of Jewish nonprofit organizations out there. So I really mean it when I say that I have great respect for the men who are behind both of them. I won't say their names on camera because they'll hit me over the head and I can't come back next time. But it's a pleasure to be here with you. Today, shir. This shir this afternoon is dedicated in honor of the same two people for whom the shir was dedicated earlier. That's Refuah Shlema of Chana Bas Chaya Gittel, and is a merit for Sarah Rezel Bas Sierel Etzel. Okay, so what are we going to be speaking about now for shir number 2? If you look in all the halacha svarim, if you look in all the Torah books that deal with halacha and that deal with tanesim, a tainus, a fast, they all say the following. They all say that the point of a fast is to improve yourself religiously and introspect, and do tshuva, to repent and get closer to Hashem, to fix up areas you need to fix. That's the function of a tainus. That's the function of a tainus. And that any person who would basically not eat or not drink for the day, but spend the whole day in nonsense or frivolities, has kept the letter of the law, but has missed in many ways the neshama, the soul of what the tainus, what the fast is supposed to be about. So we already spoke for almost an hour about Yerushalayim, Eretz Yisrael, Golus, exile, the Halakite, the Kedusha, the sanctity of Eretz Yisrael. And now we're going to shift a little bit, and I want to shift to a different topic. As we observed Shavuos B'Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz fast, even though it's the 18th today, it's appropriate day to focus on other areas in our avodas Hashem, perhaps other areas of our serving Hashem that it's fitting and appropriate to focus in on and improve. From the men of the Jewish Executive Learning Network with whom I learn regularly, periodically men have asked me to speak on the topic that we'll be discussing next, and that is the topic of Shmiras Einayim, the concept in Torah of guarding one's eyes, that a person should have a certain amount of care in what they look at and what they expose themselves to with their eyes. And also, I've been asked to speak on the inyanim pertaining to modest relationships, tznius relationships, boundaries of modesty and appropriateness for a Jew when dealing with the opposite gender. Sometimes this topic becomes more popular and more requested as we head to the warm summer months, which we find ourselves in right now, because there's more mechshalim, more stumbling blocks that are out there potentially for people. So, but whether it's because of the weather or any time of year, this is certainly a worthy topic for discussion. So we'll start out with this, and then we'll bifurcate the topics. We're going to start out by speaking about Kedushas Yisrael. Kedushas Yisrael means the sanctity of Klal Yisrael, and what it is for us, how it's a master key. If you look in the Torah, Parshas Kiseitze, this is in the book of Devarim. We didn't get there yet, but it's coming up in a few weeks from now. Like it says in my car, objects and mirror are closer than they appear. Parshas Kiseitze, it's coming. If you look at Sefer Devarim, Perach Gimel, verse 15, the Torah says as follows, and I got this out of a stone chumash, so it's perfect art scroll English for you, okay? Nobody will tell me you don't understand, okay? Here or in video land, right? Torah says, for Hashem your God walks in the midst of your camp. Hashem our God walks in the midst of the encampment of the Jews, our machaneh, to rescue you. It's a word for hatzolah, to rescue you, and to deliver you from your enemies. So Hashem walks in the midst of the machaneh, the camp of the Jewish people, to give us hatzolah, to rescue us, and to deliver us from our enemies. And then the pasuk goes on to say, so your camp, right, the encampment of the Jewish people, it should be kodesh, it should be holy, so that Hashem will not see in us something called an ervas davar, right? A shameful thing. There should be no ervas davar. Now, in a lecture that was once delivered in Beis Medrash Gavoya, the big famous Lakewood Yeshiva, a couple of years ago, the Mashgiach, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Shlita, spoke about this pasuk, and he fartaiched it, he translated it, he explained it in a way that it was understood by the Chafetz Chaim Zatzal. Rabbi Shlomo explained like this: what is the connection between the two halves of the verse, right? Hashem, your God, walks in the midst of the machane, the encampment of the Jewish people, to give you atzola, to rescue you, to deliver you from the enemies. But the next part of the pasuk says, so your encampment, right, should be holy, and he shouldn't see an ervas dover, a shameful, unsneous, immodest thing in your midst. What does that have one to do with the other? Said the Chafetz Chaim, and Rav Matisyahu was saying b'shem the Chafetz Chaim, means like this: HaKadosh Baruch Hu stands prepared to rescue every single Jewish person from his or her problems, and to give us the Hatzalah, the rescue we need. We all know what Hatzalah is in an ambulance, right? Well, Hatzalah, there's other forms of Hatzalah. Some of us need professional Hatzalah, Parnasa Hatzalah, Shalom Bayis Hatzalah, Shidduch Hatzalah, Health Hatzalah. The pasuk is telling us, right? Hashem walks in the machane, in the encampment of the Jewish people, and He stands ready to give us Hatzalah and to rescue us from our enemies of all shapes and forms. But on one condition: He cannot see an ervas davar, a shameful, immodest, unsneous, pre-tzedekah thing in our midst, right? In such a case, we'll experience what the end of the pasuk says, right? We'll not see a shameful thing, and He will turn away from behind you. If a HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees an ervas davar, some unsneousness, immodesty in the midst of Klal Yisrael, Rachmana litzlan, we will experience and we'll feel He, kaviyachol, allegorically speaking, turned His back away from us. What a shame, what a pity. But that's the pasuk kiseitze. What the first half does has to do with the second, right? And as Rav Matizyo phrased it, strengthening ourselves in snius, in modesty. And I'm speaking only to an audience of men, certainly live. I never know who's going to watch a shir on Torah anytime, right? And certainly I deal only exclusively with men through my organization, the Jewish Executive Learning Network. But we have to know, and I'm speaking to men right now, and whoever else hears, if it should be a benefit to them, matovu manoyim. But we have to know, men, gentlemen, if I may say, that tznius, it's not just a lady thing, and it's not just a matter of dress, right? Tznius is a matter of how a person carries themselves, their comportment, right? With a certain dignity, a certain modesty. Everything they have doesn't have to be shown off and flaunted and thrown in the street. We live in a world where things have no value if you don't show them off, right? I once told a student of mine, I wasn't religious, a young man once came to a class. He said, Rabbi, he said, I bet you don't know, I got a 6-pack. I said, oh, beer? Share it with us. He goes, no, my abs, I got a 6-pack. I said, that's nice. I said, what do you do with your abs? Like, what do you do with them, He said, I don't know, you just show them off, right? So I said to him, well, but what do you do with it? Nothing. I said, well, what's wrong if you had your ab muscles looking a certain way and you don't show them? He said, well, what's the point of having it if you can't show it, right? Meaning there's no function in having. I said, you also probably feel, it's also, what's the point in having a lot of money if you can't, flaunt it a little bit? He goes, yeah, that too, right? We live in a society, that's the ashkafa. That's the outlook in our society, no? What's the point in having if you can't show? Tznius means that not everything has to be shown off. Things can have value without them necessarily receiving public acclaim and attention, right? So the Yisoid is the main foundation for a person who wants to have a Yeshua, a salvation in their life, be it physical, be it health-wise, be it financial, be it in shidduchim, is to strengthen ourselves in tznius. I'm only telling you what the Mashgiach of Lakewood, Rabbi Solomon, said in his drasha. He said in Beis Medrash Gavoya. And if you think about it, who amongst us doesn't have at least one area of their life where we can use Hatzalah, where we can use rescue, help, improvement, upgrading, right? We don't hope that Hashem's going to help us out, So that's one thing I want to just introduce tonight with that idea. I also, Baruch Hashem, as I was flipping through a Gemara, I actually came across another Maramakim. Hashem showed me another place in Shas, which is it's a known Gemara, but Hashem allowed me to see it at the right time. The Gemara says in Kedushin, right? Daf Mem Amar Aleph 40a in Kedushin. It brings over there a brisa that says, whoever is confronted with the opportunity to perform an immoral act and subjugates their desires, right, and is saved from doing so, a miracle is performed for him. Do you hear what I said? I'll say it again. The Gemara says in Kedushin 40a. If you need Art Scroll, look up the Art Scroll. It says it right there, 40a in the Gemara, right? Whoever is confronted with an opportunity to perform an immoral act and holds back from doing so, such a person will find that Hashem performs a miracle for him. When that seems to be what the maskana of the pasuk is, right? Person won't have an ervas dover, immorality, unsneasness, right, going on in their life. You'll find that Hashem gives you hatzalah. Yeah, you follow? Good? Okay. Now, when it comes to all kinds of different topics, a person has to be honest about the need to grow. A lot of times, people aren't comfortable growing and changing. They think change is a 4-letter word. It has more than 4 letters, but they could swear up and down, as they say, it's a 4-letter word. They don't want to change. So I want to share with you a comment in Parshas Nosai from the Meshech Chachma, which speaks about this idea of change, and it could be an eitzah for us. In Parshas Bamidbar, chapter 6, verse 13, you know it's got to be a good piece of Torah when it's 6:13, chapter 6, verse 13 in the book of Bamidbar, Parshas Nasai. The Meshech Chachma asks the question, the Torah over there is speaking about the Nazir. Now we don't have the time tonight and this afternoon to discuss who's a Nazir and what's a Nazir, but it's a person who took upon himself certain restrictions to add to his Kedusha, his holiness. And the Torah says over here what's happening when his period of Nazirus, his Nazir period is coming to an end. And the Torah says that the Nazir shall bring himself. The Nazir will bring himself to the temple and the this and the that, the Oyel Moyed. He brings himself. So the Meshech Chachma asks, seemingly it would have sufficed for the Torah to say, the Nazir comes. The Nazir comes, right? The Nazir comes. Why does it have to say the Nazir brings himself? It's almost like he's talking about some other person. The Nazir, right? The Nazir brings himself. The Nazir is himself. Just say the Nazir comes. Why is the Torah talking a little bit of a strange way? So the Meshech Chachma says over here, there's a great lesson behind this. When a person wants to grow, a person wants to change, it could be sometimes hard to do so because a person struggles to look at himself objectively. A person struggles to look at himself objectively to see who he is and what he really is and where he needs to improve. Therefore, the Nazir, says the Meshech Chachma, should view himself and look at himself almost as though he is looking at someone else. The Nazir, this person who's trying to steig and grow and change and upgrade, the Nazir should bring himself, meaning person in this growth mode should look at himself like he's somebody else. You know what I want to say from this? Person will be allowed in this way to look at themselves and figure out where they need to improve, right? How long, in this guy's case, his Nazirus program should last. Sometimes we look at ourselves and we say, who? I need to change. Me? Change? What are you talking about? I need to guard my eyes a little bit more? You got to be talking about somebody else. Or I need to upgrade my personal tznius and how I might relate to the opposite gender. What are you talking about, right? So you see from here, a good strategy sometimes is to say, okay, we're not talking about you. We're not talking about you. But you have a friend who's exactly like you in every way. How he talks, how he walks, how he acts, what he looks at, what he exposes himself to. Right, gentlemen? What would you advise him? You'll be Rav Shach for a day. What would you tell the guy who's looking to upgrade his Kedusha in these matters? We're not talking about you. If you could look at yourself almost though you're speaking about a third party, you might have a little objectivity to allow a little bit of room for growth. As they talk the Meshech Chachma and Parshas Nosai. Okay, now let's get knee deep in some specifics over here about Shmiras Einayim. So everybody in this room, all the beautiful men with whom I'm learning today, I'm sure everybody here says the Shema and the V'ahavta and all the paragraphs every day. And we say in the last paragraph, what we sometimes call the tzitzis paragraph, we say v'lo yisasuru, right? Achrei levavchem v'achrei einechem asher atem zoinim achreim, right? V'lo yisasuru, right? Right? You should not wander, right? Achrei levavchem, after your hearts, right? V'achrei einechem, and after your eyes. It's one of the makairis, right? Don't stray after your eyes. The Torah says, right? Asher atem zoinim achreim, that you're prone to wander after. So that's one of the sources, right? But we say it every day, right? The bedtime Shema, the Shema in the morning, the Shema in the evening. How many Shema's? You're going to say it at least 3 times a day, right? Okay. So don't stray after your eyes. Be careful with the eyes. Right? The eyes are special. That's the source many people know. I'll share with you a pasuk many people are less familiar with, unless you're a real expert in Nach. Maybe you not know this pasuk. Maybe you wouldn't know it. So in the book of Isaiah, chapter 33, verse 15, he praises over there the virtue of he who averts his eyes from seeing evil. And you should know there's Gemaras on it, a famous Gemara in Baba Basra, which we'll speak out later, is based on that pasuk from the book of Isaiah, he who averts his eyes from seeing evil. The Navi, the prophet over there, is speaking that person's praises to great lengths. Now, you can also see the importance of Shmir Sanayim, not just from the fact that there's straight up instructions, right? Don't stray after your eyes. But you can also, the Mefarshim say, appreciate the importance of guarding your eyes and what you let your eyes see from the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu physically made us. I'll bring you 2 proofs. If you look in the classic Sefer, the Chavas HaLevavos, right, the duties of the heart, the Chavas HaLevavos Shara Bechina, he says over there that why is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a person's eyes that they have eyelids? Don't just assume that's the way it is. You have eyelids, right? No, you have eyelids because Hashem gave you eyelids. And if you wouldn't have, Hashem didn't give you eyelids, you wouldn't have eyelids. So says the Chavas HaLevavos, it's Pashit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you eyelids so that you should be able to quickly close your eyes in a second and not see anything inappropriate on sneas or just something that a Jewish person shouldn't see. Right? Eyelids, you can close them quickly. How long does it take to close your eyelids? Right? Nothing. You just blinked, right? Perfect, right? Perfect. Just a moment. That's one way. You see an emphasis Shmer Sanayim from the way Kodesh Baruch Hu physically made us. I'll give you another Maramakum. I once said this in a shir. I don't remember when and I don't remember where, but I once said this before. There's a great gadol in Europe from the time before the war. His name was the Bialystoker Magid. His name was Rav Eliakim Getzel Zatzal. And he once asked a good question. He said, why is it that tears, right? The tears, like when you cry, why is it that tears come from a person's einayim? Why do tears come from the eye? And again, don't come and tell me, well, that's the way it is. That's not the way it is, right? Tears can come out of your ears, right? A little kid could fall on the floor and hurt his knee and say, Mommy, Ima, right? Whatever. And that, oh no, he hurt himself, and you could see because there's tears coming out of his ears, right? Who made it that tears come out of the eyes? Hashem made it that tears, right? So why did Kadosh Baruch Hu make it tears come out of your eyes? Said the Bialystoker Magid Gevaldik. He said tears come out of the eyes to ma'ir a person, to awaken a person to the idea and an awareness. It's because so much trouble, so much suffering in life comes by how a person misuses and abuses their eyes. Whether it's a married man who's looking at things or people not supposed to, right? Or whether it's when you're walking down the street, or with your eyes you're looking at things that are not for you, not sneas, not appropriate, or you lose your eyes to look at jealousy. A lot of tsaras can come from the eyes, a lot of problems, no? So therefore, the tears, which are symbolic of pain and a mensch, a person having suffering and discomfort, that's why tears come from the eyes. You hear? That's why tears come from the eyes. If you look at the Torah sources and the Sfarim and contemporary works, you see a lot of emphasis that Shmer Sanayim, guarding your eyes, it's an area of care. It's something that never ends. It's a never-ending job. It's not like, say a guy's becoming a Baal Tshuva, right? And he puts on tzitzis, and he used to not wear tzitzis, and now he wears tzitzis, and now he wears tzitzis. It's to say, it's tzitzis, like you just mechanically put on tzitzis. You should think about tzitzis and know what they mean, but you just put on tzitzis, you're ready to go, right? You hang up a mezuzah, you're on your way. Shmiras Hanayim, it's a never-ending thing. A person has to be mechazik himself in constantly. How do I know? Well, none of us should feel bad if it's an area that we need to reinforce and reinforce. You know why? The Chafetz Chaim Zatzal, he was busy with this into his 90s. Rav Shach used to speak about the idea that it was found in the Chafetz Chaim's Takanas, the personal enactments and things that he took upon himself he was going to work on for that year. Included was in the list was to strengthen and strengthen and strengthen himself again and again and again in Shmiras Hanayim. Now we have to understand there's two levels of Shmiras Hanayim. The lowest level, which is the most basic, is that a person should not expose their eyes to see things that are obviously on tznius. If there's a person walking down the street and they're not dressed the way a human being is supposed to be dressed, you're not supposed to stare at them, you know? I mean, that is what it is. Chafetz Chaim wasn't busy with that level of Shmiras Hanayim, I assure you, in Radin. Besides, everybody was dressed there, to the hilt. That wasn't the issue. So another level of Shmiras Hanayim, where a person understands that their eyes are holy and they're supposed to be used for Torah, and therefore you don't want your eyes to get a polluted film on them by looking at things that you're not supposed to, even by accident, right? Even without care. It's not all about just, how people are dressed and modesty and so on and so forth. Okay. The Rav Shach, speaking of Rav Shach, he used to always wonder, how could a person be so heedless, how careless a person could be in Shmiras Hanayim, not being careful with what they see with their eyes? Why could you be that way? He said once that it's insane, it's crazy, it's mishugah, right? That's how they would say it in Ba'aretz, it's mishugah. That it could be that the young generation, he would say, is not careful in how you look with your eyes. And what do people say? I can look at anything I want. It's not going to influence me. It's not going to hurt me. It's not going to harm me. Well, look but don't touch. That's the expression. Look but don't touch, right? So what are you talking about? You don't even know what the Torah says. Every kid, even a little kid, knows. It says, Leisasuru, right? Achrei levavchem, don't stray after your heart. V'achrei enechem, after your eyes. What are the next words? Asher tamzonim achreim, right? After which you stray. You know what those words mean? Asher tamzonim achreim. You know what those words mean? It's the tevel, it's the nature of a person to be drawn after and influenced by what they see with their eyes. He said, what are you going to come and tell me? Oh, you're a young guy, you're so smart, you can come and go and see everything you want. It's not going to influence you. So you're better than the pasuk? When the pasuk says, do not stray after your eyes, right? After which a person is known to go and wander and stray. Now that means every person in the world, 6 billion people, that's going on them. You, it's not. It's a machlokes, you and the Torah, right? How could you be so heedless? How could you be so careless? The Torah says you're going to be influenced by what you see. Pay attention. Pay good attention. Now generally speaking, what's the halachic problem? So this is what a person has to know. Generally speaking, the isser, the prohibition on seeing something you're not supposed to, right, an ervas dover, etc. It isn't implicated if somebody or something happens to appear in front of your eyesight and you had no idea it was coming and you had no idea to avoid it and you had no possible way to suspect it would happen. Normally the prohibition on seeing things you're not supposed to see is not implicated if something pops into your line of sight. An obvious, exaggerated example is you're sitting in Beis Medrash and somebody walks in dressed like they're going to the beach, right? A lady walks in. That's not what, that's you looked up and then you look down and you don't look back. That's not what we're talking about, right? The Torah in Halacha and Orach Chaim in Siman 229 points out that there's a difference between an accidental seeing and truly staring and peering at something. In other words, if you see something once that you didn't want to and you didn't ask for it, okay, so what gets you in halacha, it's the double take. It's the look back, right? You guys smiling, right? You know what I'm saying? It's the look back. Something you didn't mean to see something, you didn't mean to see something. So you just keep walking, looking, and you go on with your life. That's the halachic problem becomes more implicated there. But I want to be clear to you that there's more to understand. Halacha doesn't just require a Yid, a Jew, to avoid situations, actively avoid situations, where you might be put in a situation where you'll see something that a Yid shouldn't see, a Jew shouldn't see. That's true, but there's more to it, right? There's even more than that, right? It's not. I'm trying to say. I don't know if I said it clearly. I'm a little dizzy from the tightness, a little dizzy from the fast. It's not just The problem is actually seeing things. Halacha expects you to avoid situations where you might be put in a situation to see something. Now I think I'm saying it a little bit clearer and sharper. Okay? And the classic example of this is a Gemara found in Baba Basra. Okay? This is a Gemara in Baba Basra, and Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis 57b. The Gemara over there is dealing with the discussion of somebody who, in the times of the Gemara, would try not to look when women would go and bend over to do their laundry, right? I guess a person would go do their laundry, and I guess maybe a little bit of the leg would be exposed, they go do laundry in a lake, a stream, a river, etc., right? And the Gemara is discussing that case. And the Gemara comes out from there. The maskana of the Gemara is, if somebody could have taken a different path, right, away from this, and you knew this was here, and you could have taken a different path, but you chose to go on this path, even if you didn't see anything wrong or try to look, the Gemara deems such a person a rasha, an evil person, a wicked person. You hear that? I'll repeat it again. If you know there's a place, in a circumstance, in a situation where if you go that way, there's a chance, a decent, respectable chance, you're going to see something a Jewish person's not supposed to see, whatever it is, right? Not supposed to see. If there's another way you could travel, but you choose to go and travel that way, even if you see nothing in the end, the Gemara calls you a rasha. Gemara calls a person a rasha. And I want to tell you something you should know. We've been very busy in Klal Yisrael, especially Baruch Hashem. We're in a beautiful base medrash in Queens today, sharing Divrei Torah in Queens. Queens is not far, I think, City Field. No? The stadium is around here, right? Okay, I don't know too much, but that's around here. So, we just had the big asifa, the big gathering for the internet and City Field and this and this. You should know one of the main marmakoimis, one of the basic sources that the big rabbanim and gedolim and halachic authorities are busy with is this Gemara in Baba Basra. Right? Because what did the Gemara say? If there's another way you could go and travel where you'll know you're going to avoid seeing, right? But you chose to go the other way where you might see or might not see. Even if you don't see, the Gemara calls you a rasha. You know what I'm saying? Because if you could have a filter, that's like another way to go, and you're not going to see, but you're going to risk it. You're going to go this way. You might see, you might not see, but you don't have to see. But even if you didn't see, the Gemara is not very impressed with you. You hear? Everybody follow? This is part of the heart of the sugya. This is part of the heart of basically where the gedolim are coming from, because this is a real Gemara in the books. Look it up. I told you in Baba Basra. I told you the page. Okay. Now we have to know. We're Klal Yisrael, right? We're Hashem's people. We say in Yiddish, we're anders. We're different, right? We are different. And the standards by which we measure what we do, what we say, what we laugh at, what we entertain ourselves with, what's funny, what's not funny, where we go, how we eat, our standards are different, okay? We're not necessarily here to be sponges of whatever the world does, and that's what we're going to do as well, right? We have to be very honest and understand that the Umas HaOlam, the nations of the world, the Goyim, they're not careful with Shmiras Hanayim. They don't hold it's a problem, right? They're not busy with it. I don't know how many Shmiras Hanayim classes take place on if they have any fast days, if they're busy talking about this, right? But we are. It might not be a story by them, but by us it is. And I want to bring you a proof to us for this idea. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld said something that's so geschmack. Perfect Torah for Shmiras Hanayim and the Dreivach in the 3 weeks that we're in right now. Listen well. We know there's a famous Gemara in Gittin, Daf Nun Hey Amud Beis. It tells a famous story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Everybody know probably the story? This is classic Tisha B'Av story, right? Kamsa and the Bar Kamsa, and there's two people, and one didn't get along with the other, and they had the same name. And one invited the other to a party, and it was a mistake, and he threw him out, and he didn't come, and he was embarrassed. Agan Samaisa, a whole story, Kamsa Bar Kamsa, Gittin 55b. Now, beyond the party piece of the story at the top of the incident, what happens in the end is Bar Kamsa feels very jilted and slighted, and he wants to get back to the Jews and back to the rabbis, and they didn't defend him as he felt he should have been defended. So what does he do? He goes to the Romans, and he tells them, the Jews are not loyal to you, and if you would try to send an animal to the Beis HaMikdash, listen well, you would send an animal to the Beis HaMikdash to be a carbon, they wouldn't accept it. And the truth is, the Jewish people were allowed to accept an animal from the Romans to bring as a carbon in the Beis HaMikdash. But Bar Kamsa was a horrible person. You know what he did? The Gemara says that he made a mark on the eye of the animal, so it would be a mum, a blemish, right? A blemish, such that when it would come to the Kohanim, etc., they wouldn't be able to bring it up on the Mizbeach. They wouldn't be able to bring it, right? So now the rabbis had a problem, right? Because now the animal comes from Bar Kamsa, and what does it have on it? It has a blemish on the eye, right? And they're thinking, should we offer it anyway? So the Malchus, the kingdom is, the Romans are not angry with us. They're going to kill us. They're not going to kill us, right? But we can't. The halacha is you can't bring an animal like this. So listen well. You know what the Gemara says over there? I'll translate the words into English from the Aramaic. It said that this blemish on the eye, the Gemara says it's considered a blemish by us, but not by them. Right? The blemish on the eye, meaning the Romans think the animal was probably good enough. You know what I mean? It's a blemish by us, but not by them. Said Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, it's a myridical lesson about Shmiras Hanayim, right? The blemish on the eye, it's considered a mum, it's considered a blemish, a disqualifier by us. Klal Yisrael has a problem with this, right? We're sensitive to Shmiras Hanayim, right? It's a blemish by us, but not by them. You follow? It's a beautiful Gemara. It's a beautiful Gemara. And Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld ties that aspect of Shmiras Hanayim into the whole thing that we're busy with over here at this time of year. But my point in this is that we have to understand, even if it's not a problem for the nations of the world, it's a problem for us, and we have our own standards by which we measure ourselves. Now, I don't know any man who learns Torah who wouldn't like to have more success in his Torah. I don't know any man who learns Gemara, whether it's once a week, once a day, once an hour, whatever it is, who has never experienced the feeling of, I'm stuck, right? I'm stuck. I don't know what's pshat. I read the same 3 lines 68 times, with art scroll, without art scroll. I'm stuck, right? It's interesting, there's the tefillah, there's a little prayer that many men say before they learn Gemara, and in many Gemaras, it's actually printed in the front cover, right? We asking Hashem for help to learn the Torah, his Gemara now. And there's a line in there that comes from Tehillim, in the book of Psalms, chapter 119, verse 18. And the phrase is a pasuk, and it says, Galeinai v'abita nifla'is m'torasecha. Galeinai v'abita nifla'is m'torasecha. What does that mean? It means we ask Hashem, Galeinai, uncover our eyes, v'abita, that I should see and behold, right? Nifla'is, wonders from your Torah, right? If you don't understand what pshat is in the Gemara and the Shakel of Atari, the back and forth, I don't know. Maybe. If you're still not getting through, I don't know. Maybe your eyes were exposed to things and maybe you shouldn't. And this is what I said before, like what the Chavetz Chaim was sensitive to. He didn't want a film, so to speak, of a pollution on his eyes that would affect his ability to understand his learning, right? A man has to understand, any Jew has to really understand, our Torah study is the most precious thing we have in the world. There's nothing more valuable for us than our Limud Torah, our connection to Torah, our study of Torah. Nothing's more precious than studying Torah. Nothing. And so therefore, any time we find ourselves looking at something that maybe we're not supposed to, just remember, it's probably going to hurt you. It's probably going to hurt you in your learning. You know what I mean? When you're going to be sitting there like a dummy looking at the same thing and you're not getting anywhere in your learning, whether it's a Musar Sefer, a Gemara, whatever else, understand, maybe you're polluting your eyes. You know what I mean? So we ask Hashem, Galeinai v'abita nifla'is m'torasecha. That's part of the prayer. Uncover my eyes, I should see wonders from your Torah. I once was learning with a Jewish young man who he grew up observant, and Nebuch, he had challenges in his life, and he had gone in decidedly different directions in his life. And he said, when I was a kid, I used to like learning Torah, but now I open the Svarim to learn, and I don't feel anything. I don't have from it anymore. I don't have a pleasure from it. And I knew what was going on with his life, and I spoke to him a little bit privately about Shmiras Hanayim a little bit, right? Spoke to him, I said, listen, it's something every man has to work on and be aware of and focus on. I told him, you didn't have any problems having a geschmack and seeing beautiful things in your Torah study before you started looking at X, Y, and Z and ABC 1, 2, 3, did you? It's like, no. I said, well, trust me, you stop looking at that and the Torah will be sweet and delicious again. Chadesh Yomenu Kekedem, like it was for you in the old days. You know what I mean? Something to bear in mind. Not only is Shmiras Hanayim important in a segula for being able to understand and comprehend your learning, have Havana, but also to remember your Torah. To remember your Torah. One of the great Rosh Yeshivas of Europe before the Holocaust was Rav Shimon Shkop Zatzal. Shimon Shkop. He wrote the famous Shari Yosher, a tremendous Talmid Chacham. And he said that one of the things a man can do to increase and upgrade the amount of Torah he remembers is to be more careful with guarding the Kedusha, the holiness of his eyes. Why? He said, I'll bring you a raya, I'll bring you a proof, you don't have to just take my word for it. How so? He said like this. He said, what happened is, we say in the Torah, V'lo sasuru achrei lavavchem achrei einechem, do not stray after your heart and after your eyes, right? And then right after, the next phrase says, Lama'an tizkaru, so that you should remember. So therefore, since Shmiras Hanayim is immediately connected in the Torah into Laman Tizkaru, that you should remember, that Rosh Shkop, that's one of the proofs in the Torah where it's alluded, that if you be careful with what you expose your eyes, you guard the Kedusha of your eyes, you'll be able to tremendously have an upgrade and an aliyah in remembering your Torah study. Now, I take people to task in a loving, friendly way, because I'm a friendly, sweet guy. When people say, you know what, I can't help what I see. I can't help it. It's not my fault. There's nothing I could do about it. And the Torah answer is, you see what you want to see. I'll tell you how I know. On the pasuk, right? On the pasuk that says, do not stray after your heart and after your eyes, Rashi quotes a medrash. This is in any Rashi and any Chumash. Rashi quotes a medrash. And the medrash says that the eyes see, the heart wants, and then the body starts going after the problematic thing, right? What does Rashi say? Rashi brings the medrash that the eyes see, then the heart wants, and the body's going to go after the trouble. But all the commentaries say the obvious thing. Rashi seems to have it backwards. The medrash seems to have it backwards. What does the verse say in the Torah? Do not stray after your heart and after your eyes. What comes first in the Torah? Heart or eyes? Heart, right? Well, do not stray after your heart and after your eyes. Don't stray after your heart. Heart comes before eyes. But what did Rashi bring the medrash? Right? The heart, right? What does it say? The eyes see, and then the heart wants. So what's the story? Why does medrash have it backwards, right? How do we reconcile the two? It's a good question, right? So you know what the teretz is? Teretz is, it's a famous teretz. Many Gedolim speak about this. They answer like this. Really the problem is this. Yes, what happens, right, is what Rashi says from the medrash. The eye see and the heart wants. But you know where the verse fits in? That the heart comes before the eyes? Because you only see what you want to see, right? In your heart, you might be interested and open to seeing things that maybe a nice Jewish man shouldn't see. In your heart, that's what in your heart. That's where you're holding, right? Right. So then your eyes, and then your eyes go see. But right. So it's really what happens. Your heart wants, and the eye see. So that's the verse in the Torah is recording the way it really, really happens, right? But what the verse is telling you is, it seems to you to be that in life, it's sometimes you'll think, well, your eye see and your heart wants. Your eye see and your heart wants only because your heart wanted first. You follow? Only because your heart really was the one that wanted first. That's how we reconcile the pasuk, the order of the pasuk, the Rashi and the medrash. The bottom line is that what you see is determined by your heart. And in general, if you don't want to see it, you probably will not have seen it. I'll share with you another idea. We're in the Drei Wochen, the 3 weeks leading up to Tisha B'Av, and this is the biggest time of year to speak about Mashiach, right? We want Mashiach, and we're in Galus, we're in exile, we want the Geula, Torah, with more Torah, with a side dish of Torah, with an appetizer of Torah. This is a lot of the Torah for the 3 weeks. Am I wrong? If I am, I don't know. I don't know Judaism, right? That's what we're busy with. So I want to speak to you about Shmiras Hanayim and Mashiach for a second. The Manchester Yeshiva Zatzal, Rabbi Yehuda Zev Segal Zatzal, pointed out that in Shemona Esrei, we ask Hashem that our eyes should see His return to Tzion, to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim, right? We say V'sechazena einenu b'shuvacha l'Tzion b'rachamim, right? That our eyes should behold your return, Hashem's return to Tzion, meaning Mashiach. You know what the Manchester Yeshiva said? Well, if we want to see the sight, right? Our eyes should behold your return to Tzion. You want to see Mashiach? You want to be able to see Mashiach? You know, if Mashiach comes tomorrow, there's going to be a very long line of Jewish people to meet Him, right? You want to meet Mashiach? Well, don't you think you want to look at Him? You want to see Him? Don't you think your eyes need a little preparation? You think you read the New York Post and the New York Times and the back and the front and then all the things with your iPod and your ShmiPod and you go on your Facebook and you look at every picture of everything. And even if you don't want to look, all these so-called friends you haven't spoken to in 25 years, they post these pictures and it shows up on your board and your page, you know. Make sure, said the Manchester Yeshiva, you want to see Mashiach, you want to see the Beis HaMikdash. It wouldn't hurt us to ask if our eyes are truly prepared to see these sights. Because we ask for it 3 times a day. And if not, maybe it's something we could work on a little. Maybe in these 3 weeks. Maybe. Just putting out a suggestion. So Ad Kan, up to here, we've been speaking about Shmiras Hanayim, a person trying to guard their eyes. From here on in, I want to speak about the importance of a person having tzniastika, appropriate, modest barriers and gedarim and relationships with people of the opposite gender. Obviously, I'm speaking to a group of men, and my talmidim are only men. But if you have a sister who's your age, some of this information would perhaps apply to her as well. Now, there's a famous Rashi in the beginning of Parshas Kedoshim. And Rashi says that wherever you find separation from Geder Erva, wherever you find separation, a Geder, a fence, a boundary from immodesty, unsneousness, nakedness, just you find boundaries, you find holiness. The real mark of a real Ben Torah, of a real Torah man, a real Torah Jew, is the way they guard their Kedusha in these inyanim. And it's hard work. It's a lot of hard work. Approximately half of the men with whom I have the privilege of learning are usually Balei Tshuva, about half. Half usually grew up observant and half are Balei Tshuva. And especially for those who didn't grow up in that kind of world, to come from a world where anything goes, not only anything goes, everything is encouraged to go, right? To come to that and to have to build a different perspective, it could seem weird. But we have to know that, as Rashi says, wherever you find separation from Geder Erva, separation from these things, you find Kedusha. The more a person will build appropriate boundaries in these areas, you're becoming halig, you're becoming holy. Sefer Torah is holy, you're becoming holy. A person has to know when it comes to dealing with the opposite gender, a person can never be too careful. And this is an area that many people would do well to think about a little bit, in their own time, and perhaps even do a touch of tshuva on. Almost everybody in the world can use a little upgrading. Never be too careful. We know the story that Yosef HaTzadik, when he was in Mitzrayim, what happened with Yosef, right? Yosef, he was there, and the Ashes Potiphar, this lady, Potiphar's wife, was interested in him. And what happened? A certain day came, and nobody was there, and she grabbed onto his coat, and she wanted to do Averas, right? We'll just leave it at that. She wanted Averas. And what happened? Yosef ran out of there. What was he wearing when he ran out? Nothing. Torah says he ran out naked. He literally just flew out of there, and she was left holding his garment. So the Balei Musar asked the obvious question. Listen, Yosef wanted to get out of there. He wasn't looking for no trouble. He didn't want to sin. But at least he could do, so he didn't have to run out into the street this way. Let him extricate and, yank it out of her hands or pull it out of her hands or, do something. Or, make a detour. Maybe go by his room, open up the the closet, take something, I don't know. He has to just run out like this. Yosef, come on. You know what the Baalei Musar say? You see from here that a person can never be too careful when it comes to basically possibly being at risk or having a taiva with people from the opposite gender. You can't be too careful. You have to respect the power of the Yetzer Hara in this area. Yeah, and if you find yourself in an ace, in a moment of nisayin, get yourself out of there. Okay? I want to give you another source. I said this in a shir this past year, in my Wednesday night Parsha shir. Torah tells us that a kohen, a regular kohen, I'm a kohen, ich bin a kohen, I'm a kohen, I'm a married kohen, but a kohen who's not married is permitted to marry an almana. A regular kohen man can marry an almana. Kohen can marry an almana, right? Fine. Kohen can marry an almana, a widow. Okay, a widow. Kohen can marry a widow. Torah says a kohen gadol cannot marry an almana. A kohen gadol, the high priest, cannot marry an almana. It says in the Torah, the book of Vayikra, chapter 21, verse 14. Now, why is that? Why would it be? Why should it be that a kohen gadol, the high priest of the Jewish people, can't marry an almana? Right? What if he's 90 and his wife Nebuch passes away at the age of 88 and he's lonely, and a year or two later he wants to marry a lady whose husband had passed away, and she's, 79, and they'll make mitzvahs together, and she'll help him learn Torah. They'll be great. Like, let him marry an almana. Why can't kohen gadol marry an almana? So, you know who asked this for a kasha? The Sefer Moshe Zakanim of the Baalei Tosef has asked this question for a kasha. Listen to what it says. It's unbelievable. If the Baalei Tosef didn't say this, I couldn't say this. I only could say this because they wrote it. I'm just telling you, like the rest of this year, what it says. The Baalei Tosef say that a kohen gadol can never marry a widow because it's possible that on Yom Kippur or another time he had once seen a married lady, he had interest in her, and when he will pronounce the Shem Hashem, the name of Hashem, the hidden name of Hashem, right, in the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur, he might have in mind that this guy who is married to the lady he saw that he liked should drop dead. You hear? Says the Moshe Zakanim of the Baalei Tosef, so it'll never come to a situation where the kohen gadol might have in mind that a married man should not be well, right? So that he should, God forbid, die, so now that lady will be eligible. Now, so therefore the Torah made a mitzvah, a kohen gadol can never marry an almana. A kohen gadol can never marry a lady who was married once before. So since he knows that, he'll never even covet a lady who was married, and he'll never have a bad machshava, a bad thought about a person when he's involved in this mystical moment of the high holiday service, which could carry with their tremendous implications. It's amazing. What do you see from here? The Torah tells us a classic rule. It's called Torah yored l'savdaita shel adam. The Torah descends to the deepest parts of a person's understanding, right? The Torah knows us, in plain English, better than we know ourselves. The Shari Oira of Rabbi Bregman Shlita points out how astonishing this is. You're dealing with the holiest person in the holiest place, right? The Beis HaMikdash, in the holiest part of the Beis HaMikdash, on the holiest day of the year, right? The holiest moment. And that could be what enters a person's mind. Kamash Malon, yes. Yes, that could be what enters a person's mind. So you see from here, a person can never be too careful in this area of having gedarim and boundaries, fences. Be careful. Be very careful, Torah is saying. Another point that brings out how you can't be too careful. On Yom Kippur, more towards the afternoon, you know what the Torah laning is, the Torah reading? We read the section called the Parsha of Arayos, right? That's these certain kind of gross, forbidden relationships, right? So it's a classic Yom Kippur question. People ask on the Machzer, all the things I could be doing tshuva for, I got a couple hours left in Yom Kippur. This is what I'm busy with. These relationships. This one with this one. Who's interested in that? What's the answer? Torah yored l'savdaita shel adam. It's Yom Kippur. Maybe there was people, men, women, people of the opposite gender, who you saw in shul when they did Yisker, When all the people whose parents are both alive step out of shul, maybe you had your eye on somebody. Maybe you weren't thinking nice Yom Kippur thoughts. Maybe you were being flirtatious or unsneous with someone. Maybe. Or maybe you didn't get around yet to doing tshuva and all the other things you did wrong in this area this year, yeah? The Torah knows you better than you know you. Yes, we have to bring out this very not pretty list of forbidden relations towards the end of Yom Kippur. So we've got to deal with this. We've got to talk about it. The person can never be too careful. I want to tell you a story on this point. I'm not a very big storyteller. I could be. Privately, I am. But publicly in the shiurim, I just teach Torah. Privately, I have as many stories for you as you like. I'll tell you a story. There's a classic Torah work, a classic, an eternal classic called the Minchas Chinuch. Everybody here's heard of the Minchas Chinuch? The Minchas Chinuch. The Minchas Chinuch. So it was a person who wrote the Sefer, and he told a story once that he once got locked in a place by accident. He got locked in a place by accident, right? Got locked up in a place by accident. And who was there? A lady. That was a non-Jewish lady. Now at this time, the Minchas Chinuch was already a very old man. But he reacted very badly to this, and in the vernacular, they would say he freaked out, right? He freaked out that he was locked in what we call yichud, seclusion, in a locked, secluded place with some lady. Wasn't his wife, wasn't his daughter, wasn't his mother. So when people asked afterwards, Rebbe, Minchas Chinuch, Harav, why did you have such a bad reaction? You're an elderly man with a beard tahir, and you're one of the gedolim, and you're going to have any interest in this elderly goita? What's going to problem, right? So you look at your age, look at your stature. Listen to what the Minchas Chinuch said, right? And this is something, it's telling you if you hear nothing else I said so far, it's kedai to hear this. Said the Minchas Chinuch, why did I react so badly? I'm an old man, yeah? He said the Yetzer Hara can make me look young again, and could even make her look beautiful. You hear? Person can't be too careful. The Yetzer Hara, yeah? With his shtus, with his games he could play, can make an old person look young, and can make a person who is horrendous looking look beautiful. He says, I don't play with the Yetzer Hara. I don't play with Yichud. I'm not going to be alone. Torah says that a man should not be excessively talkative or schmoozy with the opposite gender. Now, some people have very little weak personality, so this is not a problem for them. They're not schmoozy with anybody. You know what I mean? They can't even schmooze with themselves in front of a mirror. But some people are more schmoozy and more talkative, and for them, they have to be more careful. There's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Hey, that says, Koil hamarbe sicha ima isha goyim rala atzma yuvotam adivri Torah v'soifa yairish gehenna. Translated, not loosely, directly, Koil hamarbe sicha ima isha, whoever speaks excessively with a woman, goyim rala atzma, brings evil upon himself, right? Uvotam adivri Torah, will be mavatal words of Torah. You had time to learn Torah, you end up wasting it. V'soifa, and his end will be yairish gehenna. He'll end up in Gehenna. And it says the Mishnah Pirkei Avos, and again, I didn't write Pirkei Avos, I'm just telling you what it says. Look it up. Mishnah says over there, this even applies. Even with your own wife, a man shouldn't get used to being overly chatty with ladies. Talk, communicate, give her all the attention your wife needs. But right, al tarbet, right? But right? Afilu, even a person's own isha. Person is not supposed to be excessively schmoozy with the opposite gender, right? Excessively schmoozy. Not supposed to. You're not supposed to. It's something a person has to be cognizant of. Like there's like a little needle in your car that says like if the engine temperature is getting too hot, you don't want it to move. Well, watch that needle. You're not supposed to be too schmoozy, not too friendly. And of course it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Obviously this would apply in both directions as well. Now I want to tell you a tremendous Gemara. Most people are not familiar with this Gemara. It's a Gemara in Eruvin. It's a Gemara in Eruvin on Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis, 53b in Eruvin. The Gemara says a story of Rabbi Yossi HaGalili. Any person who's learned through some of the Gemaras, come across the name Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, is one of the rabbis in the Talmud. One time the Talmud says he was going down a road, traveling, and he ran into somebody named Bruria. Who's Bruria? Bruria was the wife of Rabbi Meir, the Tana, right? Rabbi Meir, right? Mishnah, Rabbi Meir. Bruria was his wife. So he ran into her, right? Footnote, who was Bruria's father? The famous Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion, right? Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion, who was killed with the Sefer Torah for being a Jew, burnt alive. Okay, that's Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion, right? That was her father. It was a good shidduch, right? It's like Rav Elyashiv's daughter, right? Rabbi Kanievsky, alav shalom, marrying Rav Chaim Kanievsky, making a shidduch with the Stipler. It's a good shidduch, right? So Bruria, she was approached by Rabbi Yosef Galili on the road. So Gemara in Eruvin 53b. And he said to her, which is the road we take to Lloyd, right? He was traveling somewhere. What's the road to get there? So she chastised him in a response, and she called him a shaita. She said, you're a fool. You know why she gave him Musa, the Gemara says? And you have to know the Hebrew and Aramaic to get it. But the point was, and it's clear from the Gemara, his request for directions could have been asked in 2 words, and instead he used 4 words. Because Rabbi Yosef Galili had spoken to the lady with 2 more words asking for directions, she called him a shaita, and she hit him over the head with this Mishnah that a person is not to speak, excessively with a woman. And that's literally what she did. She gave it to him over the head. Not with her hand, but I'm saying with the Mishnah. Another thing a person has to know, whether a man, a woman, something a person should know, is they should never put themselves in a position where they cause themselves that people should talk about them or wonder what's going on between them in these areas of tznius and the opposite gender. Okay? If you look in the Torah in Parshas Matos, in the book of Bamidbar, we're coming up to it very soon also, chapter 32, verse 22. Listen to the line. The Torah says, you shall be innocent in the eyes of Hashem and the eyes of Yisrael. That's what it says in the Torah. You shall be innocent in the eyes of Hashem and the eyes of Yisrael. Now the Gemara darshans this pasuk, it expounds it to mean that a person should be careful from doing things that although they are permissible, they might still arouse suspicion. Rather, the Torah says, you shall be innocent in the eyes of Hashem. Not enough that He knows you're innocent, right? Also be Yisrael. Also, people shouldn't think that you're, acting in a way and crossing boundaries that perhaps are not appropriate, right? It's not enough for Hashem to know you're innocent. People should know that as well. They should be able to look at your conduct. A lot of times in life, men or women, people, they walk around with the idea that yes, though Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us a mitzvah of dan l'chavschus, to judge your fellow Jew favorably, people assume that people are going to judge you favorably. And you know what? It's not the way it works, sadly. I advise people who would ask me my opinion, what you should do is you should do it this way. You judge people favorably, but conduct yourself in a way that, right, on the assumption that nobody's going to judge you and your conduct favorably. You hear what I'm saying? Right? You see a married guy or a married girl and they're talking very friendly to somebody else out there and that's not their spouse. Judge favorably. It's a co-worker, it's a first cousin, it's not, something, right? Nothing's going on over there. But don't ever conduct yourself in such a way, right? Don't ever conduct yourself in such a way that people have to look at you and come off to Dan L'Chavschus, judge favorably to find a good shot in what you're busy with over here. You hear what I'm saying? You hear the taich? That's why the pasuk means, right? That's the pasuk. Should be innocent in the eyes of Hashem and Yisrael. Not enough just to be innocent in the eyes of Hashem. Be innocent in a way that Klal Yisrael know. And a lot of people get burned by such a thing. And the Gemara, I'm not going to go into it now in the interest of time. The Gemara in Yuma, Lamed Chesam and Aleph gives several examples of how people refrain from behavior that was ostensibly permissible just because they didn't want to create the impression they were involved in something that was not permitted. There's also Gemara in Pesachim, Yud Gimel Lamed Aleph 13a, that gives an example of this, just will give you one example, restrictions that would fall upon charity administrators and people who used to administer the communal soup kitchens, because nobody should suspect they were giving themselves advantages. That they shouldn't do. They separated themselves, I would tell you one more shtickle on this idea of a person should act in a way that they're obviously innocent, in the eyes of Hashem and also Yisrael as well. There's a very fine line, and this applies to men and this applies to women. And since I deal exclusively with men in their 20s and 30s, things come up and questions come up and so on and so forth. Men have to know, and again, if you'll share this Torah with any lady, I guess this would apply on both sides of the fence. People have to know there's a very fine line in life between a person who is simply very friendly and one who is flirty, right? One who is flirtatious. If I would ask you, define for me in words, what is a person who's very friendly? And define for me a definition, what is a person who's flirtatious? I would challenge you to do so. I would challenge you to do so, and I don't think you'd be very successful. This is kind of close. You know what I mean? There's a very fine line between a person whose behavior could be mistaken as flirtatious, right? Who's just trying to be very friendly, right? Just a very friendly person who's being flirtatious. Flirtatious, very friendly. You got to be careful, right? You got to be very careful. Be oimed on it. Think about it a little bit. Person should, and since therefore it's a fine line, just take 6 steps back. Oh, say shalom b'mromav. Hu yaseh shalom, right? Take a few steps back, right? A couple steps back, and don't get so close to the line. Don't get close to the line, and you'll never have to explain your behavior. Am I making sense? It's good. Somebody has to say this stuff, right? I don't know how many shiurim on Torah anytime are speaking this piece of the truth. They say a lot of truth. I don't know if everybody's saying this, but this is the truth. Am I right? Yeah, this is the truth. I'm telling you like it is. So now I want to share with you some strategies for adding more kedusha to this area. More kedusha to relating to the people of the opposite gender in a proper way. And a person should be moishel overcome their taivas and their taivas, we'll call it taivas in that area, okay? One strategy number 1 is simply learn more. Learn more Torah. How is that going to help to learn more Torah? Well, if you believe the Rambam was an authority, I'll tell you a Rambam. The Rambam brings this in Hilchas Isurei Biyah, chapter 22, halacha 21. He says the famous expression that illicit thoughts can only be found in the heart of a person who is without wisdom, right? You can only have these kind of crooked thoughts many times because your heart and your mind is not filled with chachma sateicha, right? Fill yourself up with enough Torah, you're not going to be farnuman with this, you're not going to be busy with this, right? Who says that? The Rambam, right? So one solution, if a person finds it's not easy to relate to the opposite gender in either direction, go sit and learn more. That's one eitzah. And I'll give you another eitzah. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin, on Kuf Zayin Amud Aleph, it says there's a small organ on a person that when it's hungry, the person is satisfied. When it's satisfied, the person is hungry. Now, I'm not going to speak at length what this Gemara is referring to, but a person needs to know that not indulging your taivas, right? Not indulging your taivas actually helps. Indulging a taiva, indulging an urge in life, right? Whether it's food or something else, actually causes you to have more. Many times a person thinks, I have an itch, let's say an itch on my head, I'll scratch it, it goes away, right? But that's a regular itch. But if a person is busy with taivas, the things of the material world that are pulling them, if you scratch that itch, it only begets a bigger itch and a second itch, right? A more of an itch. So that's what the Gemara is saying over here in Sanhedrin, Kuf Zayin Amud Aleph, right? A person needs to know, and this, when it comes to relating to this area in a person, when a person's hungry, they're satisfied, they're fine. But you start satisfying them, they get hungry. And you know who had a michshel in this area, a big stumble? David HaMelech. The Gemara relates that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to told David he was going to test him. And David asked for the test, and he got the test. And he knew it was going to be in an area involving a lady. So David HaMelech was with one of his wives earlier in the day, and he thought that this way I'll get it out of my system, my interest in this area. But says the Gemara, David HaMelech forgot this Gemara, right? Because all he did was make the situation worse. Had he just been Pirish and separated himself in the first place, right, earlier in the day, then he would have been had a lower level of taiva come later on in the day, right? But instead he exacerbated the situation. He aggravated it. That's a strategy a person needs to bear in mind. I'll tell you another eitzah. Another eitzah that sometimes people feel works in this area is a Gemara in Sanhedrin. This is on Kuf Vav Amud Aleph. The Gemara says over there, and this is actually this past week's parsha, Balak and Bilam and Balak. The Gemara says that Bilam said that the God of the Jews hates immorality in this area, right? The God of the Jewish people hates it. So sometimes maybe a person can say to himself, you know what? I love Hashem. I think I love Hashem. You know what? I know I love Hashem. So I basically am not going to get myself involved in this kind of area, even at a moment of Nisayan, because Torah says Hashem hates this, and I love Hashem. And if you love someone, you don't intentionally go and do something that you know is hateful to a person, you know? If your wife knows that every time you eat salad, she makes you salad, you break out in hives, and you end up in the emergency room, right? If she loves you, she's not going to make this for you. She goes, I love him. Why am I going to make him salad? You know what I mean? I'm not going to do this to him. I love him, right? The same way, if you love a Kadosh Baruch Hu, you can't get involved in this. I'll share with you another eitzah. Another eitzah is, and this is number 5, is that I have a saying I often say, and this is in life, not just about tonight's topic about Shmir Sanayim and all this. A person does not find himself in a situation. A person puts himself in a situation. You hear that? A person doesn't find himself in a situation. A person puts himself in a situation. Now, it's a good quote, but it's more than that. It's a very strong rejoinder to those people who say, hey, what can I do? I just always find myself in challenging situations in these areas. You know, the guy's just saying he always seems to be in places where he's going to be tempted and have problems. And you know what the answer is? No. You don't find yourself in a situation, you put yourself there. Who asked you to go there on Saturday night? Who asked you to drink 6 beers? Who asked you to go to the beach on the July 4th? You know what I mean? After you're high. Who asked you to go be busy with this? You know what I mean? Well, I always find myself in a place. No, you got in your car and you went there, right? A person needs to step up to the plate and take responsibility. We have much more control over our environments and the likelihood of being challenged or tested much more than we usually imagine. Another thing that many people have found that seems to work well is that they should not be afraid to daven for help in this area. A person should know that it's appropriate for a yid to, if they find, or he finds, or she finds, that there's sometimes they find they might be having nisyonis vis-a-vis the opposite gender. Whether they're not from, becoming from, used to be from, quasi from, who knows, whatever they are. A person should daven to Hashem and ask for help. A person could wake up and say, Hashem, please, I need you to help me in this area today. I don't want trouble, you know? You know, why? You ask for everything else. Why not ask for help in this area? You know why I think more people don't daven? I think more people don't daven because I think they're afraid He's going to listen. And He's going to give you what you asked for. And they're afraid they're not going to be happy. You hear? I think some people don't daven for help because they're afraid, wait a minute, what if it works? What if it works? Maybe I'm not going to be happy. But the truth is, they will be happy and they'll be happier because Torah and observing the mitzvahs only adds to a person's happiness. Do you know what I'm saying? It's impossible that a person will observe a mitzvah or add an element of kedusha to his or her life and not find that their life is infinitely better than it had been before. Now, I'm over an hour, but if it's okay with your rishus, I want to share with you just a little bit more. Besides, it's a kindness. Where you have to go anyway, right? Where are you rushing off to, right? Mincha is not for at least another hour and change, right? Okay. Some people generally want these nisyonis to be taken away from them, and to them, I share with them a Gemara. It's a lesser-known Gemara. I don't know why people don't talk about this Gemara more. Some Gemaras are more famous. This Gemara is in Kedushin, Daf Mem Amud Aleph. It tells the story of Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana was once selling baskets to women. I guess that's in the hours he wasn't in Kolel, that's what he did. And when he was, and at a certain point, he was propositioned by a Gaita noblewoman, a matronisa, right? Matronisa, the Gemara calls these people, like a noblewoman came over to him in a proposition. So he excused himself for the moment. He goes, excuse me for a moment, and he walks off, and I'm not going to walk away from my spot in the camera, and he walks off, and he goes over to a roof of a building or house, whatever, and he threw himself off it. Right? Apparently his reasoning was he wanted to kill himself because he figured it's better to kill himself than to be involved in this sin. Kachava, what happened was, Eliyahu Hanavi flew, just like with a gas pedal, and just ran over and caught him, and caught Rav Kahana. I'm telling you, the Gemara says this, I couldn't make this up, right? He catches him. And so he says to him, Eliyahu Navi goes, I had to travel a very far distance to come and save you. Rav Kahana said to him, look, it's only because I'm poor and I have to come in contact with women for work that I got into this problem in the first place. So whereupon, hearing that, the Gemara says, Eliyahu Navi handed him a tremendous chest filled with money. Ad Kan the Gemara, that's the Gemara. So what do you see from that Gemara? You see from that Gemara a few things. That from the straight up perspective of truth and falsehood, it could be that it could be better to not be in this world than to sin in this area, or to be a mikshel to cause other people to sin in this area. And I have other proofs from this from the Gemara, but from the truth of perspective of real truth and falsehood, that's really the truth. I'm not even going to go there now. But what you also see from this Gemara is a tremendous lesson. You know what that is? That if you genuinely want to have these nisyonis leave you, this Gemara is gevaldik. It's telling you that if you don't want to come in contact with such people, right, who can tempt you, and the reason you come in contact is because of parnas, it's because of earning a livelihood. Kadosh Baruch Hu, if He sees you're sincere, He can even take away that nisayon from you. He'll take your test away from you. He'll do it. That's what you see from Rav Kahana. Now, someone had asked me to perhaps speak about this issue as well. Somebody who knew that this is what we're learning tonight, who's watching, I think, currently in online streaming, and that is what about having friends of the opposite gender? Okay, and what about couples going out together? So I'm just here to tell you the truth. I'm not here to make any friends. I'm going back to Lakewood shortly, and I just tell you the truth as I understand it, the Torah as I understand it, the conversations I've had with Gedolim, and you do what you need to do with it. I'm going home. Okay, so. The Torah perspective is that people from the opposite gender are not supposed to be friends. Men are not supposed to be platonic friends with ladies, and ladies are not supposed to be platonic friends with men. Now, you understand if a person is 19 and they go to Columbia University and he's keeping Shabbos for 3 weeks, and he's going to Shabbos 3 times in a row, and that's the only mitzvah he does, you can't expect such a person to never talk to half of the school walking around and his classmates anymore. I got it. But for those people who are more advanced in Torah and religious life and living, and certainly married people, not supposed to have friends of the opposite gender. You're not supposed to. In the words of one gadol that I spoke to, with whom I reviewed all the material I was going to go over for this year, I spoke to Big Rosh Shiva and I went over everything with him, and he said, yeah, say that, yeah, that's good, say it, people need to know, say it. And I came to this, I said, what does the Rosh Shiva think about this? And he said to me, he goes, tell him it's very inadvisable. Those are big yeshivas where it's in Lakewood. It's very inadvisable to have friends of the opposite gender. Even more so, what's also extremely inadvisable is the habit in many circles people do that couples might go out together for like dinner, right? Or like social thing. Like 3 guys that are buddies, they'll go out with 3 ladies that are buddies, and the husbands. And this is also, he said, very inadvisable, right? What's the problem? The problem is this. The problem is that, look, people, what happens is this, okay? What happens is that the guy, from couple A starts speaking to the girl in couple B. And the girl from couple C is speaking to the guy from couple 2. Right? And they're all talking to each other. And it ends up like you're like like speed dating. Do you know what I mean? All laughing with each other and joking with, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, laughing and enjoying, ha 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 ha. Did you hear what he said? Now he's entertaining the table. Now they're going to have a conversation, and we'll have a conversation. Oh, what is this? You're going out 3 dates, tonight for dinner with your wife? What are you doing already? You know what I mean? That's not the Torah way. Now, if a person says, I cannot and will not extricate myself from it, then you talk to the men and ignore the ladies, and the ladies will talk to the ladies and they'll ignore the men. If that's what you have to do, it's still not advisable. It's another reason it's not advisable is because people end up comparing oneself to another, right? You go home, right? You go home and your spouse could be thinking, he was so nice to his wife. Why don't you talk to me like that? Don't you see how he did this? Don't you see how he... And she could do it and he could do it. What do you need it for, right? What would happen if you go out, and this happens, I'm telling you this happens, okay? I'm telling you real life. Sometimes it could happen that a person goes out. I've heard such a maisa. It didn't happen to me. It didn't happen to somebody, no, but a respected Rav in Lakewood once told me, right, that a couple went out, and his wife is very overweight. And he went out with a lady, and a couple, right? And she was, I guess, petite or whatever. He hung out with the guy, she hung out with the girl. But his wife caught on that by hanging out with such a skinny person, he started bothering her about her weight. No, she didn't simply he never said anything. Why can't you be skinny like that lady we went out with the other night? She has just as many kids as us. She seemed to have lost it, right? The weight after. Of course, he didn't talk that way. But she figured out that, why all of a sudden is he honey, do you really need to eat that? Did you see the calories that are in it? You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, people compare. What do you need it for? You hear what I'm saying? It's very inadvisable. It's not a good idea. I want to be Messiah. I want to conclude with just this inyan. The Gemara in Makis on Chaf Dalet Amud Aleph 24a compares over there in a very clear way the Jewish people to an Aveda. What's an Aveda? Like Hashavas Aveda, a lost object, right? Jewish people are compared to a lost object. One of the commentaries called the Mikdash Mordechai points out that when can a lost object be returned to its rightful owner? Only if it has what we call simonim, signs, right? If you lose a penny, it ain't coming back to you, right? But if you wrote on the penny, and then you'd be weird, if you did this, property of Joe Schmo, and a little piece of tape, and you taped it on, you might get your penny back. Lost objects are returned to their rightful owner if and only if they have simonim. Only if they have the simonim, right? Similarly, said the Mikdash Mordechai, we can only expect to come back to Hashem, and that He'll take us back if we are still recognizable and distinct as being Jews. We look like Jews and act like Jews. We have the markings of being Yiddish people. This is similar to the idea, when Hashem, why did He take us out of Mitzrayim? Because we still had our Jewish language and our Jewish dress and our Jewish names, our Jewish things, right? Recognizable as His. If we want to be identifiable as Hashem's Yidden, His children, and we want to merit the Yeshuas, the salvations, the Hatzalah, that we started out with so long ago, about an hour and a quarter ago, we have to have simonim in this area. It's a simon of a Yid. Simon of a Jew is there's shmir sanayim. There's care of what the eyes are exposed to, right? Both in terms of secular things, all kinds of things. There's shmira. And there also has to be shmir and gedarim, care and fences, and how we relate to people of the opposite gender. That's also one of the simonim, right? Remember I told you at the top, a tainus, a fast day, one of the functions of a tainus, a fast day, it's tshuva. If we want to basically work on doing tshuva, we have to make sure we have all the simonim of being a yid, right? And I want to make sure that Hashem says, oh yeah, I recognize him. Oh, he's definitely one of mine. Mashiach is coming. I'm definitely going to take him back. He ain't no lost object lost amongst the nations of the world. Look what he looks at. Look what he doesn't look at. Look how he talks to people. Look who he doesn't talk to. Look how he speaks with a feinkeit. We say with a careful speech. Look how he's trying not to get busy in that. Yeah, him. He's one of mine. Hashem says. Yeah, he's no Aved. He's my kid, and I'm taking him home with me. Anyway, I thank you very much for listening. I again thank Chazak very, very much for opening up their beautiful Batei Medrash to us so we can learn here tonight and sharing Divrei Torah, especially on the Tainus. Also want to thank again TorahAnytime.com for always personally filming all of the shiurim that I personally have the schus of sharing and also carrying this shir as well. And I hope that next year, Mi'at Hashem, for Shabbos B'Tammuz, it'll be on the calendar, we'll have the day on the calendar. It'll be a happy occasion, and we could be speaking about all kinds of other nice Torah in Yerushalayim, Mi'at Hashem. Thank you.